Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and here is episode 2 of the Second South Korean War, which I'm fighting out in the new game, Wargame Red Dragon, a real-time strategy game which takes a look at 1980s Cold War era hypothetical conflicts. Wargame Red Dragon focuses on a hypothetical Korean War, a war over the Kuril Islands between Japan and I believe it was Russia, and then a Chinese-Russian conflict as well was another one of the scenarios. We're in turn 2. Technically it's called turn 1, but turn 0 is actually a turn as well. We've fought off 2 enemy attacks against our 2 western provinces here in the Pusan pocket or corridor, or however you want to call that, and the province of Daegu here on the left. Right now we're looking at Yundisk, which we haven't actually fought over yet. The enemy didn't move anyone in there last turn. And then Uchang. So we threw back attacks against Daegu and Uchang here on the center and left corner of the screen. The enemy's still a little ways away from Pusan itself. And then Yudesk, looks like the enemy's going to be attacking there as well. So I've kind of put in various aerial units and ground units and whatnot. I'm pretty much keeping my troops where they started, with the exception of I've designated my air units to certain areas. You can see here originally in turn 1 or turn 0 you start off with 30 political points. We're earning 15 political points per turn that we gain for having Busan, and you can see here are some of the units we can move into Busan as a reinforcement maneuver. Nothing honestly too useful. The anti-tank units would be very useful against enemy armor. Artillery would also be useful, but I feel like I don't have enough infantry, and I don't have any infantry reserves. Again, this is still the preliminary part of my look at Wargame Red Dragon, so this is episode 2 of a series which I'll be doing as kind of an after action or a let's play style series. In which I play through this campaign. The Korean scenario campaign is almost like a tutorial. It's an easy tutorial, or it's supposed to be an easy campaign, kind of an introductory, a short campaign, one that doesn't take too long. The other campaigns are a little more complex. So you can see here we're moving one of our regiments into Yudisk, which is a SEAL regiment, to hopefully help hold that province. A little bit of reinforcements moving in to help those guys. Not sure what a SEAL unit's gonna fight like. They don't usually take part in stand-up fights, but I guess we'll see here. As you can see, and again, I interrupted myself. I'm going to be doing a more formal review once I complete this and have a look at the multiplayer and the rest of the game as well, because there's quite a bit to look at in this game, feature-wise. So we end the turn there. We can see the enemy is attacking Dadow again. You can see in this case this is going to be the second battle fought over Dadow, and we've got Korean flags here over the Uchang and Busan sectors, but the Bravo and Yurang sectors here you have question marks. What that basically means is I had headquarter units in Busan and Uchang. I did not have those units in Bravo and Yurang, so I did not hold those sectors at the end of the battle. So it's almost like a follow-on battle, which is really cool because it kind of adds this element of multi-day fights. Engagements don't just stop and start. We might have held the enemy off, but we didn't destroy them, we didn't throw them back, and the front lines are maintained, if you will, almost. So here we are, and I'm sure, I apologize, I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciations of these various provinces and cities and whatnot. I'm going to be deploying some infantry here. Now, one thing that you may have noticed from the previous video is that I have fewer infantry units to deploy here, and that's because I took casualties in the first day's fight, or the first part of that battle. So my regiment, my infantry regiment, which is what I have in this province, has taken some losses. Now, I don't believe I took any losses of my recoilless, is that how you pronounce it? Rifles, or my Stinger units, because I didn't deploy any of those guys really. So some of my units, fought last round, some of them didn't, and as a result, you have varying degrees of units left. Again, you start with one headquarters unit and you kind of purchase the rest. I have about 900 political points to deploy my troops with. And again, the little plus symbols next to the various regions indicate how many political points you gain for holding those regions. I think it's like every 5 seconds is what it seems to be. But anyway, so I'm looking at maybe deploying some cargo units. One thing I ran into last round was my artillery units. The units you saw there under support, which I'm sure I'll deploy more of. Once you fire off a round, essentially, all your ammo's burned through right away on the artillery units, so you need to resupply, and we don't have any forward operating bases. We don't have anything that's going to allow us to resupply right now. And you need something that's going to reload your ammo. So I'll probably call in some trucks, if not right away, then eventually. You can see here I moved an air unit in here, not realizing that it's the F-16s, which are really only air superiority. The variants in this air wing are strictly air superiority. So I'll deploy some artillery there. The K-136 is what I believe it is. And then, as I was mentioning, I'll bring in some cargo trucks here. So what that means is I should have more than one volley, essentially, from those rocket-propelled, or not rocket-propelled, but the rail trucks. Basically, got a rail with rockets on them that get shot off and hit the enemy. And the rest of this is really going to be mainly infantry. So these guys here are in KM 900 APCs. They're infantry that's armed with light anti-tank weapons. They're light anti-tank rockets. We've got some Recoilius, is that how you pronounce it again? Rifle infantry. Don't have any Hawk SAMs, which is part of one of the air defense regiments you can call in. But we do have infantry that are armed with Stingers, so they could potentially help maintain some level of air superiority, as well as my F-16s, which I'm sure will outclass pretty much anything that the Koreans have to throw at us, with the exception of maybe some MiG-29s, but I get the sense they probably won't have many MiG-29s. Anyway, just kind of rambling at this point, so going to go ahead and finish up deploying. I'm going to buy a headquarters unit here. Again, you start with one, but you do lose the battle if all of your HQ units are destroyed. So we'll get one there. I guess what my intent is going to be is to maybe hopefully rush some troops into Bravo to lock that sector down, get us some extra income so we can call in more reinforcements, and hopefully establish a defensive perimeter over Bravo. You can see here on the map that Bravo has 3 bridges over this river. Uchang only has 1. The enemy is going to have to cross across these bridges in order to get at our sectors. So if we can line up some defensive troops across from those bridges before the enemy can cross, it should make it kind of like a fatal funnel where the enemy is going to get hopefully railroaded into just going right across those bridges into my waiting troops' arms. So I'm going to go ahead and get these guys rolling. One thing you saw me just do here on the right side of the screen, you can see something that's the speed very slow. You can actually adjust the speed of time, which is very useful because this game is a very up-tempo game. And slowing down time, especially early in these scenarios, is really critical to being able to get your guys to where you need them to go, since you can't issue orders before the battle starts like you could in a game like Combat Mission. Being able to slow down time is at the very least useful. So we're getting these guys going. We know the enemy already holds this one province where they're coming in, trying to get them into Bravo as quick as possible. You can see there kind of on the lower left the unit view. I think it would be nice if the unit view on that lower left maybe actually showed the terrain they're in, rather than just the unit itself. So far so good. My guys are getting into position here. We haven't spotted any enemy troops yet, which is ideal. The quicker we can get up here and get our troops into these buildings for some cover, the better off I think we'll be. The better off we'll be able to just kind of hopefully scrap together a defense. I don't want to move them up toward that top right building complex here in Bravo, because that'll kind of put them through some open terrain that'll probably get them cut off and destroyed. I'll move these guys into these heavy buildings here. Hopefully they'll be useful as cover. Get these other guys up, maybe put them on the corner. Oh, we got some enemy units here in sight. Call in my artillery here. So you saw there, it's set on the screen minimal range. Basically, the artillery units have you've got to be beyond a certain point in order to fire artillery. They've got to be beyond a certain point, so you can't fire point blank range with that type of rocket artillery. So by telling him to attack this specific point, though, fortunately it should have the artillery automatically adjust itself so it'll move back. And there you can see some enemy air units, some F5s, just dropping some weapons in. We'll see what it is. Hopefully it doesn't do too much damage to get my infantry. Oh goodness. So that's napalm, it looks like, just burning out, and my infantry got out of their vehicles in one case. It looks like I already lost half of them to those napalm strikes. Um, Napalm is a gelatin, kind of almost like a petroleum gelatin type product, which is incredibly deadly to personnel. So it sticks to its target. It's almost like kind of liquid gas, or not liquid, obviously gasoline's liquid, almost like a jelly, jello kind of jelly gasoline that's very sticky and flammable. And especially in the 60s, 70s, 80s was very, very popular amongst air units for anti-personnel because it basically sticks and burns to whatever, whatever it sticks to, it burns. And you can see my infantry there. Looks like I lost that entire unit. My anti-personnel carriers were able to withstand that flame, which is still burning out. Um, so if I'd kept them in their APCs, they might have been safe. You can see here my artillery strikes coming in. It's a little bit more on the bridge than I think I had wanted. I don't think the enemy's really crossed over yet, so I'm kind of wasting all those rockets. But the enemy's calling artillery as well, so our strikes are kind of crossing each other there. You can see their artillery's coming down on my APCs. I did get this one platoon or company, whatever it is, 60 men, into that one heavy building. The other two have pretty much been destroyed. Yeah, so the enemy's got some vehicles coming in against my far west province as well, where I've got some troops already in. And oh god, goodness, what is that? So it looks like flamethrowers, some long-range flamethrowers. Maybe they're shooting napalm. Napalm's commonly used in flamethrowers as well. So the enemy's got some armored vehicles that are shooting out some flames against my troops there in those buildings. Hopefully the buildings give them some cover, but more artillery, and I didn't even notice that. They've got artillery coming down against that building complex as well. There was a little briefing in the beginning of the campaign talking about how the enemy just had massive amounts of artillery, so that certainly seems to be playing out in this battle. Yeah, I need to call in some reinforcements. Hopefully I can get some infantry in here, maybe help stem the tide, kind of push this large grouping back. I will say that the AI does seem to move in groups, which is nice. It seems almost like, maybe that's a battalion or a company, or definitely probably more than a company, but it looks like maybe a battalion there. It's got a headquarters unit and 3 units, which I believe are full of no, those are T-55s. So whatever 12 tanks would be a company or a battalion or whatever. My artillery has actually reloaded from those cargo trucks, so it had a green bar next to the cargo trucks. That bar is now empty, you can see. So my artillery actually reloaded. Not all the way. It looks like they have about 41 of a potential 140 rockets, but at least better than the last battle where I could only fire them all off once. I should be able to get a couple of shots off here. I didn't realize the enemy units were tank units, so they're kind of beating up these reinforcements that I called in. The reinforcements are APCs that fire napalm, which probably was not the best call either. I was hoping to face off against enemy infantry. Napalm won't do much against a vehicle. I don't know, maybe it'll kind of boil. I can't imagine it'd be pleasant to be in a vehicle that's being attacked by napalm. At the very least, you're going to be sweltering, potentially, seriously injured, and more enemy artillery coming in. So just loads and loads of enemy pieces of artillery. I'm not sure why these rocket guys aren't firing yet. It keeps saying reloading, and I'm waiting. You can see it reloading here, but they haven't begun firing off yet. So I'm not sure. If maybe they're still in the process of getting those 40 rockets out of those resupply trucks. I'm not sure. But this battle's not going well by any means. Um, I don't have any armor to speak of, and infantry is really good against enemy armor in this game. At least Korean infantry is. The super bazooka seems pretty effective against, at the very least, armored personnel carriers and the limited number of tanks I ran into last round. I guess it's hard to say. I haven't seen a whole lot of actual tanks until this battle, but they held their own against armored vehicles, anti-aircraft vehicles, some tanks last round, some APCs. Really butchered them in the last battle. But in this battle, the enemy tanks have been able to kind of stand off just beyond our range and hit us with napalm and flamethrowers, and really I need some way to take these tanks out. And the air unit that I assigned to this sector doesn't have air-to-ground support, so I can't really take the tanks out that way. Um, Shows kind of a certain level of skill and strategy that you really need to consider on the operational level when you're deploying your troops to different sectors. It shows that there is some importance there to how you allocate your forces. I don't have an armor regiment to take out these vehicles. If I did, I feel like I'd be in a much better shape if I had some armored units to kind of give these infantry units support. Infantry in of itself is a sitting duck against enemy tanks here, but tanks against infantry all by themselves, do fairly well in this game. Um, but at least if they have, anti-personnel loadouts like Napalm certainly is. See these guys fighting off over here, just trying to. Well, they're all but gone. I got what, 2 APCs and 1 single infantryman left. So it looks like Bravo's lost. It's going to be kind of important for me to try and figure out a way to survive here, even though I've definitely lost in terms of attrition. My regiment's going to be beat up really bad. Remember, there's 2 ways to really win a battle or lose a battle. That's lose all your headquarters units, or to lose enough points that the attrition level's been reached. And I have a feeling, or at least it seems to me, that I might be in danger of the latter, losing too many points, too many units, so that I might reach my attrition level. My hope is that I can get some reinforcements in here and maybe hang on and scrape out at least a draw, one where I really more or less lose the battle but hang on to the province so that we can fight here next turn. I don't think long term I can hold this province. The one unit I have here is just losing too many men, and it doesn't make sense to redeploy units from other sectors here. But if I can keep the enemy at arm's distance or arm's length distance away from Busan itself, I can't lose per se. So the longer I can keep them away from Busan, the more time I can buy to get the American forces in. I don't know where they're coming in. I don't, maybe they'll land in Busan. Maybe they'll try and pull a MacArthur and land behind the enemy lines at Incheon, like he did historically in the Korean War, where the North Koreans had pushed the South back into the Busan perimeter, where we kind of historically are, and then MacArthur brought in a massive amphibious assault north near the capital of Seoul, near the original actual border between North and South Korea, and just sliced across the Korean peninsula, cutting off the northern forces in the south and sending them into retreat. So it's possible the game could go that route. I believe they do, just kind of by the layout of the map based on what I've looked at. But whether they do that or not, I'm not sure. Either way, I need reinforcements because, as I was mentioning before, when I was looking at the possible reinforcements I can call in, as of right now anyway, there's some units, anti-tank units, there's some anti-air units, but there really isn't a whole lot in the way of infantry reinforcements or even tank reinforcements, some tow units, but nothing armored per se that I can call in. So, I need more to hold off these North Korean attacks. They clearly just have so many units here. They've been just overwhelming me so far in this battle. In the last battle I was able to hold on, but they really had huge numbers as well. We inflicted pretty heavy losses on the enemy in the first battle of Daegu, but here on the second day of the engagement, I'm definitely getting shot up worse than I'm giving. I'm getting chewed to pieces. So I'm just kind of barely hanging on at this point. I've got the 1 HQ unit here on this province here. I've got a few troops that aren't dead yet on the other province that I had, and I'm just kind of hoping to keep this fight going as long as possible, maybe call in some air support. You know, all this F-16 has is cannons, but anything I can do to buy myself time, to maybe let the time run out. We're almost halfway through the fight. The battle has a 20-minute time period where, you know, if the fighting's still going on after 20 minutes, you just kind of carry it over to the next day, which, you know, initially, to be honest, I didn't like the time limit, but I think it makes sense when you're playing a turn-based game where each turn represents one day, one, you know, supposedly real-life day. Then I think a time limit does make some sense because, you know, you can't just fight until one side's destroyed. Um, you might not have enough time in a single day um, to fight out and resolve an engagement between multiple enemy regiments. You know, it seems realistic that you could be in the middle of an intense firefight for the course of a whole day and the battle not be resolved yet. So I kind of like that time limit. I feel like it kind of simulates that. It simulates, you know, not fully resolving an engagement in just one day, and seems more realistic to me. So anyway, calling in these reinforcement infantry units, going to get the headquarters unit down here to the southwest corner of Busan as hopefully a way to keep them a little bit out of reach of the enemy. AF-16's coming back in for another strafing, and you know, again, just trying to buy some time, just stay alive in some sense to keep the battle going and to kind of keep the enemy out of Busan. And while it does maybe sound a little bit gamey, at the same time it's realistic. You know, it's a delaying action. I'm throwing whatever I can to keep the enemy further away. I feel like that is in some sense realistic, but I don't know. Maybe that's just because I want to think it is. So it's interesting. It seems like the enemy, after an initial very strong push, you know, they spread out. They took the objective out by Uresk, took Bravo, took Gochang. They haven't pressed in on Ulchang. They don't have a HQ unit there because it's not red, and they're not sending a whole bunch of troops toward the one, you know, sector I still have. It's almost like they've kind of scouted it out, but they haven't sent a whole lot. I'm gonna put the speed back up to normal here and see what happens. But we've got, I guess 60 troops would probably be a company. I know I'm kind of going keep harping on this, but um, I guess that would probably be a company. You've got what, like 3 platoons or 3 groupings of 20 guys. I guess what, maybe a platoon is 2 squads. I'm not sure, but seems about right. Maybe it's an undersized company. I think companies usually are like 120 men or something like that. But anyway, so just as I say that, the enemy moves in some more troops, but I still think these are the scouting units that they had forward. So the VT-323, I think that's kind of like an APC scouting unit. And then it looks like maybe some kind of BMP. Oh no. So that is a lot of artillery. At least 2, 3 enemy artillery units are raining fire down on our guys. Initially I thought maybe it was going long, but it looks like they're kind of pretty accurately pounding my position here. We had 60 guys when the barrage started. You can see we're definitely taking casualties. We've taken about 10. So we lost about 1/6 of our force, now about 1/5. And they're heavily engaged now and just out of range. Again, range is the biggest hindrance to a unit, it seems, in fighting vehicles. So that might be a useful strategy, is to kind of focus on, you know, getting enemy units, using range as a way to kind of use standoff against infantry. I'm not sure. Um, so, alright, there we go. They're in range now. They can fire their bazookas at them. Apparently they're really bad shots, or they're just panicked because they're under fire. So you can see there on the bottom of the screen, it looks like my soldiers are all panicked. All my squads are panicked. It appears to be that affects their aim. And there you see, out of range, and enemy tanks come in and drop napalm or flamethrowers down on us. So the enemy using pretty good combined arms, pinning us down with machine guns and then bringing in napalm to just wipe us out. Right as I said, they weren't being very aggressive. Maybe they were just kind of trying to probe us and find where our strength was. I'm not sure, but either way, pretty heavy losses there. I've got about 100 points, but I don't have any sectors that I own to call in reinforcements. Only about 10 minutes left as I'm speeding things up. maybe they won't find my headquarter units. Gonna be a little bit gamey here and hope to maybe keep my HQ units somewhat separate from the enemy. I'm not sure. They haven't taken that, nor have they destroyed my APCs over here, so the ability to adjust time is useful. Somehow I haven't lost enough points yet to head a attrition loss yet. Feels again a little bit gamey to be driving my headquarters unit around and not be considered, having lost yet. That's part of the RTS element of this game, is that you're getting your butt kicked, but technically you don't lose because you still have one headquarters unit left. I think by now it'd be considered that we'd been overrun. Got next to no troops left on the field here. But again, super fast, so if I can get to the end of the 7 minutes, I think I still survive. And I may have to hold a territory, I believe, to kind of hold the map. I think in different videos, maybe for the rest of this series, I'll talk about kind of the historical role that different units have played. Maybe focus on one unit that's partaking in the battle and kind of talk about that, the history behind it. Like, for example, I could talk about the F-16 and the Korean Air Force and kind of the role that played, and maybe some of the weapon systems it used or the loadouts. One thing I got to give this game a lot of credit for, you're seeing some elements of this game that are very much RTS-y, but one thing that I really have to give credit to the developers of this game is the unit variety and the unit list. There's just so much, and the loadouts all seem pretty realistic and interesting and worth studying up on, and they do a very good job, I feel, in maybe the order of battle composition or something like that in this game. I see those guys with recoilless rifles. Looks like they've got some javelins. The enemy does have a lot of vehicles over here. They hadn't been holding the sector, but they do have vehicles. And look, they've got those T-55s again that have flamethrowers. So looks like I destroyed a couple of them, maybe 3 of them. The enemy had 4 and 4, and they're down to 2 and 3. But that napalm is darn effective against infantry. I've only got the one headquarters unit. I need to try and keep it safe, so I'll pull it back here to the southern quarter of Chang. We've only got about 3 minutes left that my guys have to survive in order to, again, I'm not sure if I don't hold any territories, if it's a victory or not, but so we'll go ahead and stop here at the corner of the map as time speeds along here. Only about 2 minutes left. But yeah, like I said, so that's the route I'm going to go with the next video. Is I'll probably talk a little bit, obviously, about the map itself, the strategic situation going on in the game and the game itself. But then I think I'll also go ahead and maybe, in the downtime or while the fight's going on, because you kind of have a good sense of what I'm doing here just by watching, is I'll talk a little bit about different units, different technology, things like that. So we're down to under a minute. The enemy is attacking these APCs of mine. I want to try and keep this province under control, so I'm going to keep this guy here. But hopefully the enemy doesn't come for me. I mean, I don't know if I can win if I don't hold any of the little hexes on the map. And okay, so it doesn't matter. Enemy tank showed up and destroyed me. So it's a total defeat. Battle stopped because all the units on the battlefield were destroyed, and the battle is now lost. So the enemy now has a province bordering Pusan, sorry. If we lose that territory, we lose the campaign. That's about a 30-minute video here, so we'll go ahead and end episode 2. I appreciate you tuning in. Thanks for watching, and until next time, this is the Historical Gamer, signing out.